Hello and happy Sunday to you. Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with to next week's stocks to watch for trading and investing. If you go to the blog, you'll see that I do have some concerns about the overall market and briefly just point out some things on different sectors and indexes. And we've got next week, we've got a big week of earnings. We kick into high gear next week and should be eventful. My concern is that maybe, just maybe, we have some really good earnings, but the stocks don't reflect those earnings. So, could be a case of good news already priced in. Go to the blog and read what I wrote. I've got several sectors that I'm keeping an eye on this week that I think are interesting. One of them is not energy. Even though energy has been very strong, we've had a nice run. I would not be surprised if we were to consolidate a little bit, maybe even drift lower. I still think energy is an interesting play for the latter part of this year, but we've had a decent move in some of the energy names. We've had a great move in oil. You had Trump tweeting out that oil prices are artificially high, and that could have thrown some cold water on the rally there. But I would not be surprised if we consolidate a little bit and pull back. But go to the blog, alphawolftrading.com, and take a look at what I'm thinking about the overall markets. All right, so let's go ahead and hop right in to the stocks to watch list for trading and investing. We're going to start out with TGTX, which had a nice announcements, preclinical data come out last week. Now, the stock really didn't react to that announcement, but it's setting up nicely and it's hanging out right here around the 50-day moving average. The issue, though, with TGTX is that IBB is one of those indexes that I have a little concern about. We've got Trump that's going to be talking about drug pricing, I believe, giving a speech on the 26th. That could be impactful and not necessarily in a positive way for biotech and healthcare, which has already been pretty beaten up. But TGTX, just from a technical standpoint, looking pretty good, looking for a trendline break with some conviction, with some volume, and could be a day trading opportunity there. Let's take a look at GBTC. So, blockchain, Bitcoin, getting a little bit of a bounce. A lot of the actually the cryptocurrencies getting a bounce, and GBTC is a way to play that. Now, we've just reclaimed the 200-day moving average. We've actually just reclaimed the 50-day. Now, this is up a few days in a row. But if Bitcoin continues to climb, if cryptos, start to get in fuego again, then GBTC could benefit from that. And I think it's worth keeping an eye on this one as a potential sympathy play to the cryptocurrencies. INSG, this one, full disclosure, I have a position still in this. I've sold some off, booked some profit, but I still have a position. This has had a difficult time in the 228 to 230 area. We just tested that area again, reversed, and now we're oversold, curling up a little bit. Maybe we'll test this trend line, possibly hop back up into the 232 area. Maybe finally take that out. Right? The more times we test something, eventually it gives way and we bust through. So we'll see if we can have that occur on INSG. Now, we are in earnings season. I don't know when these guys are reporting earnings, so make sure you check that with everything that's on this list here. Make sure you don't have earnings on the horizon before you go jumping in. But I do like the technical setup on INSG. It's a smaller float, 43 million shares in the float, traded 97,000 shares on Friday. Worth keeping an eye on that one for a day trade, higher risk swing. AQMS, which had a little bit of a pop back above the 50-day moving average on Friday. Now, this one is actually approaching overbought, but things can stay overbought. Now, looking maybe for a little pullback into the 248, 250 area, and then a bounce to go up back up and test the $3 holla. I love those round number rolls. We could get a round number roll if we break through 3. Then you're looking at next area of resistance somewhere around 350, 360. That's not too bad of a move from a stock that's sitting at $2.60. So potential high risk day trading opportunity or swing. I say high risk because of the 25 million share float, smaller float. But traded good volume, 659,000 shares on Friday. So worth keeping an eye on AQMS, potential red to green, pull back to 250. Maybe we get a pop up into the $3 area. SOFO. So, SOFO was brought up by one of the pro members at Alpha Wolf Trading on Friday. Actually took a little starter position. I have not yet, but I am considering it. There was a 10% owner that picked up 232,000 shares at $2.15 on the 16th. Just took out the 50-day. Here's the issue. 10,000 shares traded hands on Friday. This got 3.3 million shares in the float. Super, super tiny. Now, $2 seems to be acting as support, right? We're testing this trend line. Maybe we get a pullback close to 2 once again. And that could be an interesting spot to take it for a little swing. A lotto swing because of the fact that this is 3.3 million shares in the float. If it winds up taking out this trend line, I think potentially you get a test up to $3 at the 200-day. You can take, if we take that out, we take the 200-day out, then maybe we've got a pop up into the 325, 350 area. So higher risk, but and it's in a long-term downtrend, right? So this is actually been in a downtrend for 3 years or so, actually longer. So big long-term downtrend that we have to take out. Once you get a break above that long-term downtrend, then you could be looking at a trend reversal, and that could be interesting for this one. High risk. Can't emphasize that enough, but I think it's worth keeping an eye on for a potential trading opportunity. It does appear as though $2 is the floor, and it's been putting in a base for a while. So keeping an eye on SOFO for a potential high swing, high risk trade, or maybe a day trading opportunity if some press release comes out and gives it a jolt. Don't chase that thing. Look for a good, clean intraday setup. GE. So GE has been kind of acting as though maybe the $12.70, $13 area acting as support. Full disclosure, I have a small position starter for a long-term hold in GE. They reported earnings on Friday. Now, last week, it actually was grinding higher into the earnings number, got the number, popped, gapped up, and then we pulled back. There is no reason to chase GE. I think that, there will be enough people that will come out with some negative articles and so forth and so on. Bottoming is a process. It doesn't happen in one quick swoop, right? So it's a process. I think potentially we go back down, we test that 13 area and see if it holds a support, and that could be a spot where you look to add to the position. So, had decent earnings. I think it was the guidance. People expected them to guide down. They didn't. And then they talk about maybe selling off their locomotive division Friday. So there's some things happening there. Big, thick stock, long-term hold play. I don't think you have to rush it. Maybe you pull back to $13.50. You look to maybe start something there. Or, like I said, go back and retest the $13 area. That could be a spot to dip your toe. FLDM, Fluidigm, diagnostics research. It's got a really nice pattern actually. Lots of 10% buys from $4.50 all the way up to $6.82. Earnings are on May 3rd on this one. It might be waiting till earnings. Maybe you get a pop heading ahead of earnings, get a little run, go back up and test the $8 holla area. It's just below the 50-day. Like I said, I have some concerns about healthcare and biotech, but I think FLDM has a pretty decent looking setup. And on a trend line break and a break back above the 50-day with some volume, could be a good trading opportunity there in FLDM. Infi's got a significant amount of 10% buys, 1+ million shares at $1.97 in April. So, I like that the setup here had a nice little pop and then consolidating right here on top of the 50-day and the 20-day moving average. We just took out the $2 holla. You're likely going to have some resistance up here at about 250, 260. Take that out, though. You're taking out this trend line, and then maybe we get a 3 test up to about 350, somewhere in that area. 41 million shares in the float. I do like the technical setup there. See if maybe we get a trading opportunity out of that one next week. JYNT, recent IPO. Been watching this one actually for quite a while and missed the break over $6. And now it's been consolidating here right around $7. Issue here, the amount of shares that trade per day, 40,000 shares. Not a lot of liquidity there, but it really has been holding up quite nicely. Let's back this thing out to the weekly time frame. Now, this is well, actually, it's been around for a while. It's been around since 2015. I thought it was a more recent IPO than that. We're at a very interesting spot here. If we can take out 725, 750 with some conviction, then I think your next area of potential resistance is somewhere around $9. Like I said, it's been consolidating nicely right here around $7. Maybe you look for a swing position at around 650 or a pullback down to 625, somewhere in that area. And then if we take out 725, 730 with conviction, maybe we have a nice day trading opportunity. Got to have some volume, though, to be able to play JYNT. CPST had a nice run, had some insider buys, 89 cents, got up to $1.80 and is pulling back. It might drift all the way down and test this 121, 125 area as potential support. Looking for a trend line break. This is actually trades pretty decent volume. It traded 570,000 shares on Friday. It's got 42 million shares in the float. Maybe if energy takes a little breather here, maybe this drifts back down and we test this 120 area. I think that could be an interesting spot for maybe a higher risk swing. Like I said, make sure you check to see when these guys are reporting earnings. Looks like they just reported some preliminary numbers, and that actually is what gave it a nice little pop. But then we've been pulling back here. So, like I said, 120, that could be an interesting spot. 120, 115 for a swing trade opportunity and a potential day trade on a break over that little short-term trend line there. PFNX. Now, I have all kinds of different areas where I look each weekend to find potential stocks to watch. Biotech, Biopharma Catalyst, I look at that, who actually just started a new premium service that I happen to like quite a bit. But PFNX has got potential phase 3 top line data due out second quarter. This has been consolidating for a while, only traded 40,000 shares. It is sitting above the 50 EMA, sitting above $5, which seems to be acting as some potential price support. You got stochastics that are starting to curl higher. Now, this could move in advance of their phase 3 data, but keep in mind, biotech's phase 3 data can end very, very badly. Right? If they don't meet their primary or secondary endpoints, this thing could get crushed. So keep that in mind. But it has a nice technical setup. It's only got 17.8 million shares in the float. At least have it on your radar so that if this thing does start moving, you recognize that it's got a potential catalyst and worth maybe taking a little scalp trade in if the news comes out, or maybe look for a run up into the news, maybe a higher risk little swing play, but you've got to play it size appropriate, right? And this only traded, let's see, 40,000 shares, so thin trader. SMPL, another place that I look for stocks to watch is insider buys. I'm a big proponent of finding stocks that have insider buys. And the CFO, I like CFOs buying. They know the numbers. CFO bought 10,000 shares at $13.19. Now, that's not a huge amount of shares, but still, it's a pretty decent buy. And I'm looking at the fact that we are near an area of price support. So maybe 1250. Actually, you might have a little short-term bottom bounce here, double bottom bounce, right? So we've got came down, tested here, and then we came back down, we retested. Maybe we bounce off to there. Look for a trend line break. This only got 27 million shares in the float, but traded 241,000 shares on Friday. So there's some liquidity there. Take out that trend line with some conviction. I think you get a test back up into the $15 area. You take 15 out, and we likely go back up and test 16 bucks. That's a pretty nice little move. And I think, this one could be actually under pressure because Dean Foods had an announcement this weekend, and it wasn't good. They canceled contracts with 100 farms or something like that, dairy farmers, because Walmart is going to start buying their milk direct, producing its own milk, I should say. So this could actually wind up pulling back. If it pulled back into the 1150, 1170 area, I might be compelled to take this as a swing or a long-term hold consideration. And one of my thoughts on this is that there's been some recent consolidation within the industry, right? So this could be another target as a potential acquisition candidate. Hasn't been trading for very long, but I like this SMPL. I like the fact that the CFO stepped up and picked up 10,000 shares. So worth keeping an eye on SMPL. CTIC, very tight consolidation. This one also expecting phase 3 data second quarter 2018. Hanging out here at the 50-day moving average, just been consolidating. Stochastic starting to curl up, potentially a 4 roll. Now maybe this starts to move in advance of their phase 3 data. You've got the Golden Cross. There's a lot of things I like about CTIC actually. Higher risk, 70,000 shares traded hands on Friday, so pretty thin. This could be like a lottery ticket. You take some shares, see if the news comes out, get a pop over 4 with some authority. I really like the look of CTIC actually. I think it's worth keeping an eye on. 50 million shares in the float. Not a big float, but again, it will be battling the sector. If the IBB continues to struggle or break down, you're going to see a lot of these biotechs are going to struggle as well. BWEN, love the look of this daily time frame. Nice consolidation right here at the 200-day moving average. And they had some news about 16 days ago that their recovery and order intake looks like their business is starting to pick back up again. But then it had a big move, right? It had a big move. It went from $2.25 up to $3.25, $1. On a $2 stock. It's a pretty big move. So it needs to absorb that. And it's been consolidating right here at the 200-day. This could be interesting on a pullback to the $2.60 range, maybe as a swing type trade. This only traded 39,000 shares on Friday, so very thin trading stock, and that makes it more difficult. But if we get some volume and we wind up taking out 325, this one could have some room to run. Likely have some resistance about 360 and then more resistance in the $4 area. Worth keeping an eye on BWEN. I just like the look of that daily chart. RNWK, another insider buy play. Insider buys 293 to 347. And here we are at 348. Now we are at the top of this channel, right? And we're consolidating a little bit. We're overbought. Listen, we could see a pullback. It was about 120,000 shares that were purchased. Maybe you pull back to, the $3 area, the 50-day, 310, 315. That could be an interesting spot. Take it for a swing. Maybe we need to consolidate some more here. Build up some energy before trying to take out 350, but it does have an interesting look on the daily. I think closer to 3 or 270 could be interesting for a swing or long-term hold consideration after you do your due diligence. 17.2 million shares in the float, small float. So overbought, needs to take a breather, but worth at least putting on your radar to watch for future opportunities. KSHB. So I mentioned in the blog cannabis being one of the sectors that I like, and I explain why in the blog. But KSHB is one that I actually played in the past, and I did well in it. I could have done much better. I actually sold it a bit early. I hit my targets. I got out, and then the thing just kept ripping for about another $2 or $3. So I played it poorly, but it's been pulling back since that spike. There was some insider selling, which I'm not super crazy about, but they just acquired another company. And this is an interesting play on cannabis because they don't do anything with the actual drug or touch the plant. They are all about packaging, and now they sell gases that are used to compress the hemp and take all the CBD oils out of it. So it's an interesting play, probably a safer play in terms of not having any risk from federal regulators, but it's pulling back to $5. I think this is more of a swing, long-term hold type play. Maybe pulls back to 475, 480. That's where the 100 EMA is. Could be an interesting spot to start building a position. It could pull all the way back to the 200-day, somewhere around 325. I'd probably be more aggressive there. And it could also have a nice little pop for a day trade with some volume. So worth doing a little due diligence on KSHB. And if the cannabis sector goes, this could be one to get involved in. So keep an eye on KSHB. OCUL. Wait a minute. All right, here we go. Let's see. This had some insider buys. CEO, nothing huge, but it did have some insider buys. I like the way it's consolidating here. Nice tight candles above the 50-day. You've got the golden cross, which just occurred. You've got the 50-day breaking over the 200-day. This only traded 83,000 shares, and it only has 19 million shares in the float. But tight candles right at the 20-day moving average. Maybe this is waiting on earnings. Maybe it's waiting on some type of a catalyst. But biotech name, worth keeping an eye on it for a break over the trend line with conviction. Could be interesting on a pullback to say $6 as a bounce play on OCUL. EGAN, I have been watching this thing forever. I missed the opportunity to trade this. I had it when it was consolidating back here. Pulled back and it pierced below the 50-day and then took off. Consolidated and then rose again. And now we've been, we got overbought. We're pulling back. This one might be waiting on earnings. I think a pullback to $7.50, $8 could be interesting for a swing. $7.50, $8, $7 could be an interesting spot for a swing on EGAN, but the chart is really looking great. Lower left, upper right, A pullback to potential support, I think it could be worth the risk. And you play this with there's been some insider selling there as well. You play this one size appropriate, but really has a good looking setup on the daily. BMY, full disclosure, I have this as a long term hold, not a big position, and actually am looking to potentially add to my position. The first batch I picked up was in the $49 area. Um, but it's really been getting hammered pretty good. And then we've got this Trump thing coming up next week, this speech, and maybe this thing breaks some really key uh, areas of support. And let me show you what I'm looking at here. This has been in an uptrend for a while, and this is the long term uptrend. Now, it's dangerously close to breaking below this long term trend line. And potentially, if it does break below there, we could pull all the way back into the $35 area where what I'm $36. I'm looking at an area where there's some real potential support. This had news last week, and even though it seemed like the data was good, apparently Merck had something better. So it's gotten pretty pounded, and it's at an area of potential price support. Now, break below 50 bucks, 47.50. I probably would add to my position. Would I take my full position? I don't think so. I mean, I'll add to it, but I'm gonna be watching to see if this 30 or $47 area holds the support. If not, there's a strong likelihood we could go down and test 40 bucks. So I like BMY for a long-term hold. Big, thick stock, 1.6 billion shares in the float, pays a dividend, but not looking real good, and potentially looking at a death cross if this thing continues to drop. Now, it's in an area, it's oversold. It's extremely oversold, and it's in an area that if it's going to bounce, this could be the spot where it starts to bounce. It's worth keeping an eye on, but you got to be patient with that one. IPI, another one that's had some insider buying in the $3.30. CEO bought some shares in March, $3.44, $3.30, 20,000 shares. Not a huge amount of shares, but if I'm not mistaken, they bought a significant amount more at lower prices, like 600,000, a million shares. A lot of shares being bought in IPI. And it's at an area of potential resistance. We could see a pullback. I think in the 350 area, it's really been acting as price support. 350, 325 area. If it gets back into this 350 area, it might be one to keep in mind for a swing trade opportunity, maybe even a long-term hold consideration. KEYW, aerospace defense, that is what these guys are. And this thing has been consolidating really, really well. You've got the Golden Cross, the 50-day crossing above the 200-day. You're consolidating just below 850. Maybe a pullback to 750. This one is interesting. 750 down to $7 actually, somewhere in that area. 725, 750. Could be interesting for a swing play. Like I said, make sure you check to see when they're going to report earnings. But wait a minute, free research report. Looks like they might have already reported earnings here. Oh no, hold on. May 8th. Okay, so they report in a couple of weeks. But pretty good looking daily setup, and I think in a pullback into the $7, 725 area, it is fairly compelling maybe to take a swing. Traded a million shares on Friday, 35 million shares in the float. More of a swing or long-term hold consideration there. FBIO, phase 3 data due second quarter 2018. Looks like $4 is kind of acting as support here. It did just break below the 50-day, but it's oversold. Maybe looking for a bounce off here and a trend line test back up to $5. At least worth having on the radar, but like I said, biotechs could be under pressure. Fuel cell has been consolidating really nicely. Now, energy's had a great move, utilities not so much, but nice little pop into resistance and then consolidating, right? Building up a little energy before potentially trying to take out that 210 area. Maybe this drifts down, tests 185 or 187, somewhere in that area. That could be an interesting spot to take it for more of a swing. Higher risk. I think they have a lot of debt, 77 million shares in the float, but I kind of like the setup here. Potential flat top breakout. Look for some volume. Could be an interesting play. QHC, nice looking setup on the daily. 164,000 shares traded hands on Friday. Consolidating after a nice run up, drifting lower. Now maybe we pull all the way back down to $7.85, $8. That acts as support, then for a bounce, or we just get a trend line break off of some kind of a news catalyst. But pretty nice look on QHC. And let me back this out to the weekly time frame here, real quick. So $10 is an area of resistance. That's where it found some resistance. Now we pull back into the $8, like I said, $8 down to $7.25. Could be an interesting spot for a bounce on QHC. And that's it. That is my list of stocks to watch for this week. Look, we're going to have a lot of other stocks that are going to move. We've got earnings plays, plenty of them. I've got all the earnings for next week, the highly anticipated ones, on the blog. Go to alphawolftrading.com, read my blog, read my thoughts, take a look at the earnings calendar, take a look at the economic calendar. We got GDP next week. We've got some economic data, and we've got some other just events that could move the market. So lots going on next week. Let's see what the markets do. I mean, this is could be a defining week for the indexes. If we have really strong earnings and strong guidance, and we don't get the kind of reaction that we want to see out of stocks, that could be a concerning signal. So keep that in mind. All right, that's it. Have a fantastic Sunday. If you're interested in becoming a pro member over at Alpha Wolf Trading, it's only $197 a year. It's ridiculous. Ridiculously low price for membership. What's my deal? I want to build a great community of traders that are willing to help each other out without people having to pay an arm and a leg. And I've got a fantastic group. And if you're interested in becoming part of that group, you can email me at tim@alphawolftrading.com, or just check out the membership options. There's only one. And that's it. All right, good luck trading next week. Don't chase, have a plan. Always know your risk reward. And I'll see you next week.